Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I will try to share my screen, but somehow it doesn't want to now. Yeah. Oops. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Good. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity to discuss. What I would like to show you quickly is how we see the challenges and opportunities ahead of the port operators in Europe in the next years. And the picture shows here also a little bit what we are thinking about, which is still a vision of the future, but who knows? And we're actually looking at whether this is feasible. Perhaps a few words on who we are. Should anybody not know us, Hamburger Hafen is one of the big or the leading port and logistics company in Europe. We are stock listed. We are owned in majority by the city of Hamburg, with the rest being free float. And next to being in Hamburg, we are also, I would say, increasingly being present in the rest of Europe. What areas are we focusing on? What we are most known for is the container sector, where we operate 3 of the 4 terminals in the city of Hamburg. But beyond that, we also operate a container terminal in Odessa in Ukraine, in Tallinn in Estonia, and you might have heard we signed an agreement, we signed an agreement end of September. Closing will be end of the year, to acquire a port in Trieste in Italy, and because we see a potential there also for increasing volumes coming from the south, and therefore I would tend to agree with some of the comments said before with regards to the shifts in volumes from North to South Europe, and certainly we are intending to be a player in that field. The other main area we are involved in is Metrans, the largest intermodal operator in Europe. We operate roughly 550 trains per week, with own locomotives, own rolling stock, to own terminals in the hinterland, covering from the north and from the south the central European countries. We also started beginning of this year with an intermodal company called Ukraine Intermodal Company in the Ukraine, linking Odessa with the hinterland cities, and we intend to further develop that to also looking at Belarus, Baltics, and Poland as potential further markets. Third area is the logistics area, where we have several joint ventures in Hamburg and outside of Hamburg with big players in bulk, in RoRo, etc., and also our sister company, Hamburg Port Consulting, which is specialized in consulting for ports. And last but not least, a little bit less well known, but we're also involved in the real estate, where we manage in the name and on behalf of the city of Hamburg some of the known real estate, should you have been to Hamburg, the Speicherstadt and the fish market, and some other areas in the city. Now, coming back.
Are you moving through the slides? Because we still can only see the first slide at the moment.
That is not good, because I am moving my slides. Then I'll have to do what the colleague did before and try and restart it. So can
we can see the first
Philip, try it on full screen first, and then perhaps you could use your directional keys to change the slides.
Yep. Can you see the slide now or not?
We can see the slides, but perhaps you could put it on full screen mode and then try
I'm trying to. Somehow it seems a little difficult now. Do you see the slide changing or not?
Yeah, now we can see it changing, yes.
Okay, so I was at this slide here, and I'll keep it like this and hope it works now. So, yeah, changes and opportunities, changes in the port landscape. I think we all involved in the area are seeing quite a bit of change. I mean, the globalization as we knew it, and that's not just related to the to the election in the US, but in general, is changing, and we have to adapt to that. Also, before the 2008 Lehman crisis, we had double-digit, compared to GDP, we had double GDP growth in container volumes. That also come to an end, and we're now at single-digit, potentially even going below single-digit at some point in time. Our customers, and I used to work for a shipping line called United Arab Shipping Company, which was merged with Hapag-Lloyd, and there were several other mergers from a situation where we had more than 20, 25 worldwide operating container shipping lines. We're now down to 7, 8 really global shipping lines, and there is a potential for further consolidation going ahead. And shipping lines are seeing their market power and are starting to use their market power going forward. The political environment becomes more volatile, and the economic framework, not just because of COVID, but in general, is also changing, and we have to adapt to that. And as we can see also from the different presentations, there is an increasing competition for cargo between the different ports. That's a new situation we have to live with and we have to adapt to. I would say a little bit in order not to become the dinosaurs and to disappear. Can you see now the next slide or not? Just to be sure that.
Fine.
Yeah, okay. So what does it mean for us? It means for us that we have more and more demands put on us, not only what the original ones were from the shipping lines, i.e. making sure the ship comes in quickly, is discharged quickly, that the containers are stored, and that the price is as low as possible. But we increasingly have other players that are having significant impact and demands on the ports. Freight forwarders on the one hand, and I think it was discussed quite a bit, hinterland distribution, and making sure that ports are not a bottleneck and that ports are allowing and facilitating very fast movement of cargo to the hinterland. The cargo owners and our customers in general want more and more transparency on their supply chain and want to know exactly where is their container, how is their container moving, and what are the next steps. And I think Isabel talked about that. There is an increasing pressure from the community. I mean, we know that very well in Hamburg, where the port is in the middle of the city, and there's an issue with the port, we clog up immediately the whole city, and we have our pictures on the newspapers the next morning. So we need to be much more careful and put a lot of efforts into managing the local communities and making sure that we are at the forefront of sustainability, low emissions, and that the port becomes more part of the city's ecosystem. The same applies. Tallinn is a little bit of a separate situation because the port is outside of the city, but in Odessa, for those who've been there, the port is in the middle of the city, and we have exactly the same issues we need to deal with. Our new investment in Trieste is exactly the same thing. So those are really issues that we need to address in order to remain, on the one hand, competitive, and on the other hand, to be allowed to develop as we think is required. Now, recently, and I'm talking to you from my home, we are in a lockup situation. Just trying, it's a slide we created internally to try and assess a little bit what will be the impact of COVID going forward. And I think there's a lot of discussion about V-shape, U-shape, L-shape recovery. Fact is, we don't really know yet exactly how this is going to pan out. But what we've tried to do here is to see, looking at what the different impacts are going to be and what could it lead to. The clear message is uncertainty, and therefore we have to be prepared and we have to be flexible to address that. Now, on the positive side, while on the land borders there were quite a bit of issues in March, April, May with regarding to transport of goods, I think on the port side we've been able to quite efficiently manage the situation and ensure that the ports were open, flow of goods was functioning, even if there were some disruptions. Again, that will, I think, continue to affect us for at least the next few months. And then beyond that is the question of how our supply chain going to change in a durable manner going forward. So that's a little bit the negative image. If we now look at the positive side, and we've spent a lot of time thinking about that and saying what is required, how do ports need to position themselves? And I think, coming back to what I said earlier on, ports are a key part of the logistic chain. But ports need to be more of an integral part of the logistic chain. It's not just a piece of infrastructure where vessels arrive and you have to provide a good service, but we have to become part of the whole A to B supply chain. Doesn't mean that we have to provide that supply chain, but we have to be a very integrated part of that. And then addressing at the same time all the needs of our different customers. And that's what we're trying to show in the middle, is really key is the customer and the supply chain, and what are the different parts that are required, and where do ports need to be involved in order to make sure that we manage well the transition between the sea and the continental transport flows, and ensure a quick and a rapid distribution. That's not just the physical movement of goods, but it is also very much related to the data that's associated with that. When I was working at UAC, I always used to say we're one of the most backward industry what digitalization is concerning, because there is still every port call a ship has to do, every container that transits over a port still requires a massive amount of paperwork. Now, it's improving, and it's improving quickly, but we still have a lot of work to do to become more relevant in that sector. That brings me to digitalization and digital technologies. And there is a lot of new, how do you say, technologies and approaches we are being confronted with, being sensoric, being cloud, being 3D printing, which I think we haven't fully grasped yet what impact this will have on us. Things like blockchain, artificial intelligence. I was mentioning, you saw the pictures on drones, which is something that is very, and we're trying, and we're applying the use of drones not just for maintenance of buildings, but as the first page showed, also to think about, is there a way to transport containers, probably empty containers rather than full containers in the future, in a more efficient way. So those are all things, I think, that we are confronted with, and that we need to be at the forefront of the development to ensure, in cooperation with all the different partners involved in the supply chain, to ensure that we become all more efficient in the way we transport goods from A to B. And we are certainly putting a lot of effort into assessing the different technologies, and even with some startups that we cooperate with or even invest in, to look at and try out new things to see how this can be done. Ports, old industry, and ports were very unsexy, I would say, until a few years ago, but ports have the potential, if we do it right, to really develop into innovative hubs, and really be a binding point between the different how do you say, actors of the chain, and be at the forefront of innovation, taking into consideration, and on the left hand side here on the slide is the word environment, making sure that we are more relevant with requirements to environment. I mean, we have now committed as HHLA to be carbon neutral by 2040, which seems pretty far away. But we've committed to do it not quote unquote cheating with kind of certificates, etc., but really genuinely to make sure that we are achieving that. And those are big efforts and investment that everybody has to do, but that will allow us to really adapt to the changing environment, become more flexible, and therefore gain a place at the table going forward. So that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Should there be any questions, more than happy to answer these.